Okay, hello everyone. It's 2:00 p.m. in Japan. Welcome to the CCET webinar session. Today, CCET with the National Environment Commission Bhutan and the Minister of the Environment Japan will co-organize a webinar on environmental education for proper waste management. Ecology note from critical thinking to critical action. Before starting, let me share with you briefly some housekeeping announcement. This webinar is delivered in English and Japanese, so please select the language you would like to listen to by clicking the button, translation button at the bottom. And we have received questions from the participants in advance. We have gone through all the questions, and the presenters here today will cover them in their presentations and discussion as much as possible. We may not be able to answer all questions, but due to time limitation. But if you have any, please select the language and put them at the chat box at the bottom of the screen. Also, we would like to receive your feedback on this webinar. So please kindly fill out the online questionnaire after the webinar. The questionnaire will be shown on your screen when you leave the Zoom session. Your feedback is pretty much appreciated to consider our future events. And this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be uploaded on the CCET website after the event. Well, so let's move on to the session. We will have opening remark from Mr. Onogawa, Director of CCET. So please let me invite Onogawa-san.
Thank you, Tatsuno-san. And with the non-Japanese participants, please allow me to speak in Japanese today. As the majority of the participants of today's webinar Japanese people. So,
welcome to this webinar on environmental education. IJCenter, collaborating with UNEP on environmental technologies, or CCET in short, is working for the waste management in developing countries. So our target of activities are usually developing countries and not developed countries such as Japan. 2/3 of the participants who have registered with this webinar are from Japan. And this is not to say the least rare or for us the first time experience. CCET has organized a series of webinars on the subjects of waste management. And today's subject is Ecology Note in support of education for waste management, which is a part of our activities. But rather than not just promoting understanding of waste management, I would like to also cover a broader concept of resource management and environmental management as a whole. Waste management in Japan is completely different from those of other Asian countries. Japanese waste management is based on incineration with focus on reduction of wastes to be landfilled and the creation of sanitary conditions at the landfill site. But in the case of Japan, in order to have incineration facilities be accepted by communities, the cost of the treatment is considered of secondary importance. And as a result of that, our waste treatment cost has come up to be quite high. And the condition of Asian countries is different. Incineration is not an easily affordable technology due to high cost, but because of the lack of operational know-how, it's not easy for other Asian countries to have incineration as a waste treatment approach. And its application is limited to some numbers of cities. At the same time, we face the problem of waste composition in Asia, which is rich in organic component with high moisture. Therefore, it is not advantageous for incineration. Our final goal is the efficient use of our limited resources in the world, as it is discussed in the concept of 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Our current world is consuming resources in an unsustainable manner, which is quite unfortunate. This is a difficult question that we all need to tackle. The solution for these problems from waste management perspective or wise use of our limited resources, reduction of waste generation is the best answer. However, this requires participation of all the stakeholders, including general public. And that is why education is key. And especially school children are the important target to achieve this goal. And as one of such efforts, we are promoting the development of Ecology Note as a supplemental educational material in school in Asian countries. That is what we do at CCET. Japan enjoys well-developed waste management right now. However, the situation was quite different 50 years ago at the time of the previous Tokyo Olympic Games in 1964. With the hosting of the Olympic Games, we changed our behaviors, people's behavioral change. This made the clean waste management possible in Japan. In today's webinar, we will introduce the concept of such understanding and practical experiences of Japanese people from Kita Kyushu will be shared, and official position and direction of environmental education of Japan will be presented by the Ministry of the Environment of Japan. And we'll also learn from Bhutan, which is a country of gross national happiness. The example of application of Ecology Note will be introduced by a speaker from Bhutan. This Ecology Note has been jointly developed by CCET and the government of Bhutan recently, and I hope you will enjoy this discussion of the webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Kumara, who is the Vice Director or Deputy Director of CCET, is the moderator. I hand over to you, Kumara.
I hope introduction to the seminar. And this webinar, actually, we are thinking to have 3 outcomes in the discussions. First one is how environmental education can be designed and integrated into the national and the local policies. And then we look at how environmental education programs can be effectively implemented, not as knowledge products, but also as activities where the students can be motivated to take action from the knowledge. And then we also look at how the international cooperation can enhance the peer learning among the countries and cities to develop meaningful education, environmental education programs. So we hope that during today's presentation and the discussions, we can at least achieve some of these objectives of the webinar. At the same time, as Onagawa-san mentioned, we have 4 speakers. The first, Ms. Tasuno from the CCET. She is the program coordinator of these environmental education programs in our unit. And also we have very pleased to Ms. Ugyan Shomo with us. She is from the Waste Management Division in Bhutan. So she was the main lead author of that Ecology Note Bhutan version in Bhutan with CCT. And also we are so happy to be here with us, Mr. Akihiro Hanse. He is the head of the Environmental Studies Division, Environmental Bureau, Kita Kyushu City, because all this CCT Ecology Note idea was born from the Kita Kyushu City, and that is the experience we are sharing with other countries and the cities. So that's we are very happy to be Akihiro-san with us today. And also we are very happy to have Ms. Kumi Tashihiro from the Deputy Director, Office of Environmental Education, Ministry of Environment, Japan, with us today to share the Japanese national experience and how Japanese government is working on environmental education. So these are the 4 speakers with us today. We hope that we can have a very good knowledge sharing and also discussion in the next 1 hour. So first, let me invite the Ms. Niwa Tasuno to share her presentation. So Tasuno-san, for you.
Thank you for your introduction, Kumara-san. Let me share my screen then. Okay, well, from my side, I would like to introduce the role of environmental education for shifting toward making action and the CCET initiatives to develop ecology node. First of all, I would like to briefly touch upon how the nature of education has been changing globally for sustainability. In recent years, due to the rapid development of technology, global environmental crisis, the impact of COVID-19 and so on, the significance of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, so-called VUCA, has been increasing worldwide. And children and young generation need to survive such chaotic condition. So OECD Learning Framework 2030 emphasizes the importance of education to guide younger generation to survive such a VUCA world. And UNESCO suggests action-oriented or active learning pedagogy and identified 8 key competencies which are necessary ability and skills for all children and youth. These competencies are not something that teachers or parents can teach. Rather, learners must develop by themselves, and it requires transformative shift from teaching to active learning. But let me briefly touch on the Japanese case. In Japan, the Japanese government also has been making effort to transform its education toward active learning. Recently, the Ministry of Education launched the new national curriculum guideline, of which underlying concept is active learning. In the past, there was concern in Japan that self-motivated type of education approach would lower students' academic performance. However, according to the survey by National Institute for Educational Policy Research in Japan, the result of the nationwide academic achievement test at the primary and the secondary schools shows that schools which are committed to conducting active learning methods have higher level of academic performance. Considering the importance of active learning, Ecology node was developed based on action-oriented approach. If you would like to look at the Ecology node, please visit our CCET website. You can download them from the site. The original version of Ecology node was produced by Kitakyushu City, which is one of the leading environmentally sustainable cities in Japan. And Ecology node has been utilized not only in Japan, but also being adopted in Myanmar, Cambodia, and Bhutan. In Myanmar, since 2014, CCET together with Kitakyushu City have been helping develop a new environmental education programs for Mandalay City, the second largest city in the country, and found that the existing instruction focuses only awareness raising. So CCET developed Ecology node for Mandalay and the new environmental learning program to involve students and teachers in more action-oriented activities to produce actual outcomes, and supported its implementation in 3 model schools in Mandalay. Students gradually learned the benefit of hygiene, sanitation, and cleanliness of their schools. And the Ecology node and the program have been expanded to other 18 model schools in 2016, and eventually reached all 250 schools in the city. In Cambodia, CCET has supported developing national and city-level waste management strategies. And during its process, CCET also assisted Phnom Penh City in implementing a pilot project for environmental education at 2 primary schools, both of which have more than 2,000 students. At those schools, along with the development of ecology notes, various activities were conducted, such as waste separation, waste audit, composting, training for teachers, and so on. And these outcomes and ecology note were shared with 164 schools in Phnom Penh and also primary schools in other municipalities. Regarding Bhutan, as you know, the country is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world, but due to the rapid economic growth, increasing amount of waste has been a large issue. Waste management is designated as one of the national flagship program of Bhutan, and promotion of environmental education has been positioned as one of the important strategies. But today, we invited a special guest from National Environment Committee Bhutan, Ms. Ugen. She will share the details of the development of ecology note. And lastly, I would like to share the lessons learned from our experience. First of all, as seen in Mandalay and Phnom Penh, once students recognize the benefit of the actions they took, such as making more comfortable surrounding environment by themselves through the cleanliness of their schools, students start taking actions by their own initiative. And such activities have more ripple effect and could be largely replicated to other schools. And activity itself are simple, but it includes key components to enhance some of the key competencies, especially such as collaboration, self-awareness, and problem-solving competency. And another point is the involvement of national government. In Myanmar and Cambodia, projects were implemented at the school or city level, but in Bhutan, the project implementation was at the national level. And of course, sufficient outcomes have been produced by involving teachers, schools, and the city level government. However, involvement of the national level agencies could accelerate the improvement at a larger scale. For example, usually national governments have responsibility to design school curriculum. In Bhutan, Royal Education Council incorporated the waste management subjects into the national official curriculum. There are many schools where environmental education is conducted as extracurricular activity, but it could be included in the official classes. And this would make it easier for teachers to carry out their environmental classes on the ground. And I believe that Ms. Ugen will give us the insights on the curriculum development to incorporate the waste management topics to science textbooks in Bhutan. Today, we have speakers from National Environment Commission of Bhutan, Ministry of Environment Japan, and Kyushu City. And I'm very much honored to have such wonderful guests and looking forward to learning the detail about how they have been making efforts at the ministry and the city level for better environmental education. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tasuna-san, for giving the introduction to the meeting. I think this is important because the meeting is based on the experience of Kyushu and the Bhutan. So thank you very much for sharing how the ecology note was developed in start from the Myanmar and moved to the Cambodia, and then how it's now working in Bhutan. So then may I invite our guest speaker from Bhutan, Ms. Ugean, to share with us how Ecology North in Bhutan was initiated and how it's integrated into the education material. Ms. Bhutan, Ms. Ugyan, please share in your experience. But please keep your time managed up to 10 minutes. That's helpful for us to have some discussions because we have a quite good questions from the participants. Thank you.
20 minutes.
Thank you, Kumara-san and Miwa-san, for introducing me. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I will be discussing about ecology project in Bhutan in my presentation today. So to briefly describe how the ecology project for Bhutan came in. So it was during one of the waste management workshop conducted by CCET and IGS in Nepal in 2019. There, CCET was presenting their past ecology projects at Myanmar, Japan, and Cambodia. There, I also thought that we also need ecology note for Bhutan. So in the workshop, I proposed to CCET about the need of ecology note project in Bhutan. So the main reason for my proposal was we already had initiatives by school students. For instance, Youth Action for 4R Clubs was launched in 2015 by Her Majesty the Queen, where the focus was on 4 Rs: reduce, reuse, recycle, and responsibilities. And we had more than 16 schools participating in that club initiative launched by Her Majesty in collaboration with the National Environment Commission. So during our meeting with the schools and site visits and their reports, we were introduced to how the 4 Rs were implementing at the schools. For instance, the schools were using cardboards to make into segregating bins where they were segregating plastics, PET bottles, and papers in a simple manner at their classrooms. Then they even had storage shed for recyclable waste like PET bottles and beer bottles, where the students could sell it to the nearby waste management waste entrepreneurs, and they could generate a small amount of income for the school activities. Then the schools were conducting monthly meetings on how to go about the Youth Action for 4 Rs activities in their respective schools. And they were also reducing no junk food at the school. So some of the examples were like students were using plastic bottles and thermocol boxes for their gardening and also for decoration items. And then this was really interesting because the students, they used egg trays and made it into a beautiful ornament where the girls in the school can wear during the annual concert. And it really looked like it was the real ornaments, and the girls did not have to spend a huge amount to buy from the shops. They could use it from the waste egg trays. And then school were also doing exhibition on waste items to the officials and other stakeholders. And they were using waste items for their Youth Action for Our Club's corner. You can see the chairs made out of plastics and other paper boxes there to segregate waste. And the 4th R was very interesting. It focuses on the responsibility, where the students were advocating behavioral change through My Waste, My Responsibilities slogan, and doing cleaning up campaign nearby their school communities. And we have also engaged Scout youths to do door-to-door campaigns for a month on plastic ban. They visited each households. And through one of the other project, Waste and Climate Change, we have also provided hands-on training to the Youth for Ours clubs teachers to make other recyclable products from the plastic waste. And during the World Environment Day 2018, when the theme was on Beat Plastic Pollution, Her Majesty the Queen of Bhutan awarded Certificate of Appreciation to the schools. Now coming to the ecology note, our primary focus was on primary and secondary school students, monastic institution, and to complement the environmental science textbook, and also to enhance youth action for our club's activities, and to, to achieve national waste management strategy and waste management flagship program schools and objective on behavioral change and capacity building. So as briefly discussed before, in March 2019, we had the initial contact with IGES, where the ecology note for Bhutan was proposed. And in May 2019, the CCET team visited Bhutan, and they were introduced to the schools and what were the schools doing on 4 hours. And we also had towards the September, we had series of consultation meeting with the stakeholders. And in January 2019, we also met with the Royal Education Council, where we discussed about having ecology note integrated in the science curriculum textbook. So in May 2020, we could successfully integrate the ecology note in the revised curriculum textbook of science from class 4 to 8 on sustainable waste management. And the primary goal was to achieve 3 Rs, and also to avoid waste generation from the source. So for instance, we had theme from ecology note, and we have integrated in the science textbook. This is the snapshot of science textbook for class 4, how we have integrated. For instance, we have integrated how to educate students on waste segregation and source. And then we have integrated in the topic, for example, non-degradable and degradable waste of chapter 1 in class 4 science textbook. And as the students' grade increased, we have also introduce them with the science activities, for example, calculation, how to calculate amount of waste generated by a class in a year, where we have given an exercise with the statistics there, and the student have to exercise as well. And in class 6 science textbook, we have introduced hazardous waste concept, and we have integrated it in acid and alkalis topic of class science textbook. Then we have also introduced trying to make compost in the class 6 textbook. And then in class 7, we have introduced the concept of global warming from ecology note and introduced into the textbook. And then in class 8, if you see, we have introduced them with ineffective waste management. How can it lead to air, land, and water pollution? And also open burning of waste. How can it lead to acid rain? We have introduced them in the science textbook. So that was on how we have integrated the ecology note into the science curriculum from class 4 to class 8 at national level. So on 14th October, coinciding with the World Environmental Education Day, we have successfully launched the ecology note. And from 23rd January to 27th January 2021, we have conducted training of trainers for science teachers across the countries, where more than 500 teachers participated. And we also had resource persons from CCET, and we had presentation from waste management flagship programs, and other resource persons where teachers were guided on how to use the teacher's guide while teaching in the class for their students on ecology node, and then also on the revised science curriculum. And currently we have also completed the Dzongkha ecology node for Bhutan, and then this will be catered to the nuns and monks of Bhutan. So that's my presentation in brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sukyan, for giving us the explanation how you develop this ecology node and how it's integrated into the curriculum in the science class and other curriculum in the school. So thank you very much. Actually, we have quite a lot of questions for you, but we will come to you after all other presentations have finished. So please wait. So then let me invite Mr. Akihiro from Kitakyushu City to share the ecology node in Kitakyushu City and how it will be used by the schools in Kitakyushu City. Mr. Akihiro, please.
Thank you. Let me first share the slide deck.
それでは私の方からですね。
Thank you. I would like to discuss the case of Kitakyushu. I am the Unit Head, Environmental Studies Division, Environment Bureau, Kitakyushu City. My name is Hansei, and I'm very grateful that IGES has organized this event, giving me an opportunity to talk to the experts from Ministries of the Environment of Bhutan and Japan. Now, let me discuss promotion of environmental education in Kitakyushu City. It is also being promoted by my bureau. Due to the limited time I have, I would like to focus on 2 points. First is Kitakyushu's history of overcoming pollution. The second is the education to raise environmental awareness for young learners. Now, let me start with our history of overcoming pollution. In my discussion, I would first like to introduce a little about Kitakyushu City. Kitakyushu City is located in the westmost area of Japanese archipelago. Its population is shy of 1 million, at 940,000 to be exact. From ancient times, Kitakyushu has been a bustling spot for international trade with mainland China and Korean Peninsula, and it is also the gateway to Asian countries as well. It is located in the halfway point between Shanghai and Tokyo. Also, beaches and other areas are within 30 minutes transportation, and it is also renowned for its environmental initiatives. And Kitakyushu have had a challenge of pollution about half a century ago, and that has given Kitakyushu a prod to work harder on this environmental front. In early 20th century, ever since the state-run Yahata iron work came online, it has led the modernization and industrialization of Japan. In the 50s and 60s, when Japan's economy was rapidly development, it suffered serious air and water pollution in exchange for economic prosperity. Dokaiwan in the industrial area came to be dubbed as the Dead Sea. With constant smokes and soot falling down all day, many people suffered asthma. Jobs and prosperity was made possible by the industry, but that also accompanied serious pollution, which in turn eventually led to the rising of the citizens. In the Tobata district, Women's Association rose,
And it was in fact the housemakers and mothers of young children who stood up, who became so concerned about the health of her families. They started studying the situation. They also invited university teachers to learn how the researches should be carried out. And the research outcome was shared with the government and the municipal assemblies, asking for a change. In 1965, they took a film which was screened along with the lecture series. Women's association movement has led to the changes in public opinion, which eventually has led to the changes on the part of the government and the business sector. Of particular importance is the fact that the Women's Association did not seek to take an antagonistic route, bringing the case to the court. Rather, they tried to improve the situation through dialogue. It was quite epoch-making. The government served as the mediator, and through dialogue, they have been able to achieve reconciliation, thereby taking the first steps towards the improvement of the situation. Responding to the voices of the citizen, the city government has set the pollution prevention ordinance, which was much stricter than the one at the national level. They also have formulated the environmental improvement plans or environmental monitoring or guidance on factories. Private sector responded positively as well by concluding pollution prevention agreement as well. They have converted their industrial processes into one that has less environmental load. And this has led to the success of dramatic decrease of pollutants and waste. And this also has made a positive impact on businesses as well, because that has helped bring down the running cost of such facilities. And this has made it possible to achieve environmental health and economic prosperity at the same time. And even though economy and environment is often considered in a trade-off situation, Kitakyushu has sought to achieve both of them already half a century ago. And this is the history of Kitakyushu. And this was made possible by a triangular partnership among the civil, business, and government sector. This is the picture of Dokaiwan in the 50s and 60s. And right bottom is the Dokaiwan as we see it today. In the past, the ocean was dead, and there was not even one bacterium in the sea, but we are pleased to announce that we have more than 110 species of marine life in Dokaiwan. In 1965, dustfall was highest across the nation in Kitakyushu, but the amount of dustfall has been reduced to 1/20th from its peak, and Kitakyushu City was awarded by the ministry, the then Agency of Environment, for its starry skies. Now on education for awareness raising. The Midori no Noto, or Green Frontier workbook is something that I want to talk about. It is imperative to give opportunities to think about environment or the interaction among nature, environment, society from a young age. This is the area Kitakyushu is attaching much importance to. We are emphasizing the importance of the discovery and awareness on the part of the learners. And this note is for first and second graders who are 6 and 7 years old. Talking about pollution for these age group is difficult. That is why we first focus on letting the children know the importance of nature and trying to raise their interest in it. For older children, it is important to facilitate a positive, proactive position or the attitude. And citizens' environmental competencies is something that is quite important. And with this understanding, we are promoting the following projects and initiatives. This is Kitakyushu's side leaders. School environmental education needs to pay attention to different developmental stages in creating site leaders. And these are for children in kindergarten and primary schools. Upon entrance to primary school, they are given Midori no note or ecology note. Now, about the ecology note, 2008, Kitakyushu City was designated as the environment model city. In order to foster children's interest in environment from upon entrance to primary school, we have developed this ecology note in 2009. This is a workbook into which children can write in. This has been distributed to all primary schools across the city since 2010. It's linked to school curriculum to give comprehensive and concrete guidance, helping children better understand the environmental issues in and around Kitakyushu City. Starting point is to learn the benefit of low carbon city, for example. And in order to facilitate the learning, the note includes lots of pictures and drawings. This isn't something that we created. This has been compiled by teachers attending workshops and study groups to enhance and enrich its contents. For first and second graders, the note's aim is to foster interest in nature through crosswords and games. For fifth and sixth graders, for example, important topics would include global warming and energy issues. Kitakyushu's history of pollution is something that is highlighted in the note as well. This is the teacher's guidebook. This is the guidebook that combines younger children of all the school grades from first to sixth grades. And encircled in red are the points that needs to be emphasized during classes. So, Environment Bureau provides educational materials in fostering environmental education. And homeroom teachers are the ones who can decide how to teach the classes. This is a class that invites garbage collection employees of the cities. Garbage trucks are brought into schoolyards and mock garbages are collected. And that serves as the starting point of the discussion to expand the topic to include pollution or house waste treatment processes and so on. And one of the intention is to bring this topic home to discuss the topic with their family members. And that also allows the children to be the ambassador on this topic as well. This is an environmental educational facility, which is Environment Museum, which was converted from the Environment Pavilion sponsored by Kitakyushu City at Kitakyushu Exhibition in 2001. It has lots of environment policy related exhibitions, and through panels and educational aid, children can enjoy learning about environment. It also has full-time guide who provides educational program targeting fourth graders. This is the citizen volunteers working in the Environment Museum. And this is how the environment learning supporters work. They help children create some artworks using some waste, or they also visit some of the schools to provide some lessons. Also, they also receive some tours that shows around the environmental efforts. And this too is unique to Kitakyushu as well. This is environment capital certificate screening. This was launched back in 2008. The purpose is to give an opportunity to citizens to enjoy learning about the environment and also to enhance environmental competencies who are interested in this topic. It is important to expand the base of those citizens who are interested in working on this front. Every year, a number of people come take the exams to get the certificate, and in 2010, the number of test takers exceeded 6,000. As was the case with the Ecology note, this also is linked with school education, and this certificate exam can be taken in municipal primary schools as well. And many fourth graders take the exams in Kitakyushu City. Due to the pandemic, it is difficult to take exams on the venue, so we started providing this screening exam online as well. And we are hoping to expand the scope to include junior as well as senior high school students as well. This is the largest environment event in west part of Japan, and it is titled Eco Life Stage. Citizens, civil society group, NPOs, businesses, and local governments exhibit on their eco-life or environment-related activities. The focus is waste management or prevention of food loss and green energy. This is a very valuable opportunity. People can be exposed to players who are not necessarily close to them in their everyday life. And this is the event held in 2019 on November 23rd and 24th, Eco Life Stage Test Drive event, which was attended by 157,000 visitors, with 83 groups attending. Now on environmental mascot characters. In order to promote these activities, these characters appears in a number of school events and kindergarten events to talk to young children. And they also have an original Teitan dance, and they are very popular among young children, and they have been invited to a number of schools every year. And city employees also go to these schools to provide some lectures and classes. And this isn't a year-round program, but this is an initiative to reduce the CO2 emission at home. And this is the check sheet to be used by households And by using these materials, you can also facilitate environmental awareness at home as well, thereby facilitating the CO2 emission reduction. These are the initiatives that are in place in Kitakyushu City. Thank you very much for your attention. And these are the initiatives at the Environment Bureau of Kitakyushu City.
Hansei-san.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hansei.
Thank you very much for sharing the experience of Kitakyushu City. Actually, it gives us understanding this active learning needs not only school, so it's need the support from the whole society. So that is one of the, like a lot of participants asked this question. I think we can further discuss in the discussion session. So thank you very much. So then let me introduce Ms. Kumi Tashiro. She is the Deputy Director of the Office of Environmental Education in the Ministry of Environment, Japan. She will share with us the Japanese experience at the national level, how the ministry has created the enabling environment to support the environmental education at the school level and the city level. So Ms. Tashiro, for your presentation.
はい、神村さんありがとうございます。それでは、
Thank you very much for your introduction. I am Tashiro. I am from the Office of Environmental Education of the Ministry of the Environment. Very nice to meet you.
ご存知の方も多いかもしれません。
So as you may know, the Ministry of the Environment back in 1971 became the ministry. Back then it was the environmental agency. So in a week we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary. And from 2001 we are the Ministry of the Environment, and the Agency of Environment was born in 1971. And if you can look at the middle portion of this, in the 2002, Johannesburg summit was hosted, and then Prime Minister Koizumi spoke about the importance of education of sustainable development. And then from 2005 to 2014, the United Nations Decade of ESD was defined and it was adopted. And since then, ESD, or the environment of education, was something that has been promoted by both the Ministry of Environment as well as the Ministry of Education. If you look at the domestic portion, in 2003, the lawmakers submitted a bill on environmental education promotion. And then in the law, the environmental education was stipulated, and it's been revised twice. Right now, this has been upgraded to environmental education promotion law, and this encompasses not just the environment, but also the access of environment, economy, as well as the society. Next, please. So, given those movements, jointly, the Ministry of the Environment and the Ministry of Education set up ESD centers. We have one national center, and we have 8 regional centers, and then we have regional ESD bases, and this counts 139 bases across Japan. So this is looking at where those ESD centers are located. We have the national center in Tokyo, and we have 8 regional ESD centers, and for each region, they pick up, they have 139 ESD regional bases that are registered, which are working on environment education activities in each region. So when it comes to environment education promotion law that's been revised, we now have the nature-based experiences. So businesses and NPOs, they have some places that are made open, and environment education can be conducted in those places, and they make such application, and we recognize these places. And then we deploy different programs across these places. And what are those nature-based experiences available? It's not just to do with nature, but other places are recognized, like camping places and forests, and also recycling plants, as well as waste separation places. And it's not just for the kids or people to take a look at these places, but these are the places where hands-on workshops are also available. So we also have training for teachers. And this is not just a lecture type education. Because of the situation last year, we had hybrid and online format. But this is not just a lecture, but we have discussions and group work, workshops, and etc. And as introduced, the places for experiences, so we actually go there. I mean, the teachers actually go there to see what kind of programs and what kind of experiences, what kind of educational methods may be available. They can actually experience that. And in this training of teachers training, we have this ESD calendar development as part of the workshop. This ESD calendar is something to do with how to incorporate ESD in the educational curriculum at school. This is for making teachers consider that we do not have a thematic subject as environment. However, in national language and science and mathematics or so on and so forth, which grade learns what at each time point and how that's relevant to ESD, that can be looked at a glance in which months what theme is being taught and how that's relevant to another theme learned at different time point. That is something that can be understood looking at this at a glance. So teachers can know which graders are learning what. And through this, we can promote active learning and we can have whole school approach of ESD. So this is a very important tool for that. So now we are also providing teaching materials to the left. And this is not just for environment education, but we have facilitation skills guidebooks being available. In the past, we had supplementary materials that's been prepared and developed, which was like a textbook, but then the information changes very rapidly and we could not catch up with the change in the information. So rather than having actual textbooks, we are shifting our focus on how to facilitate learning using textbooks. For instance, Japan Environmental Management Association for Industry has prepared the website, and one is for primary school kids, and another one is for junior high school kids, and another one website for resources available for teachers. So fact check can be done. And this kind of resource is prepared by a private sector partner. We have a partnership with such entities. And then how to make best use of these available materials. That is something that is written in the facilitation skill guidebook. And this is about high school students. We have awards being given for their environmental activities. This year marks the 7th year for the award. And we have the presentation event for the youth environmental activities presentations. Those are youth or high school students. They make presentations on their environmental activities that are to be awarded. Next, for instance, these are the schools that's been awarded in the past. Marine plastic reduction, that's one area. And another one is the agriculture produce that's been wasted is now reused, or traditional industry being turned into some modern or new industry. These are the areas of environmental activities by high schools. And it's not just for schools. We have Good Life Award. This year marks the 9th year, and we are now soliciting applications. And it's not just about environment, but the access of environment and society. And it's not just schools, but also NPOs, communities, as well as local governments, and even individuals can make an application in order to spread their activities across. This is for other people to learn, or other communities to learn from these good practices. And in the past, we had a school division, but this year, for the first time, we have a youth division of this Good Life Award. Up until last year, these are the awardees for excellence. Top left, this is by a school. From the kindergarten to the college students, they come together, they have experience in nature, and then they develop a kind of a model where communities and schools can work together. So it's not as if we tell teachers to conduct certain activities, but this is a kind of hands-on learning opportunities, and kids actually come up with some ideas, and those ideas are actually implemented on the ground. And yet another one, this is another example of, bottom left, this is about separation of garbage. These are produced in homes, and they are separated into 45 categories, and the recycling rate is over 80%. And top right, this is by a company in Kita-Kyushu. Surfactant is used to produce this liquid to extinguish fire. And this is something used to extinguish fire in the forest, so wildfire. And then bottom right is something to do with compost. And then we also have public events. For instance, we have Eco Life Fair, which is to introduce ecological activities starting from June 10th to July 31st. This is only online this year, but this is for changing people's lifestyles. And another one is more to do with nature, and this is what is called Green Challenge Day to the right. And another one, we have produced video materials and YouTube channels materials. Next. And EEESD talk series. These are the people who have been working on environmental education for a long time. And those who are working on it right now, primary school kids to university professors, they come to talk, to introduce their activities. And also we have international collaboration. We have United Nations Institute for Advanced Study of Sustainability located in Tokyo. We are working together with this institute and have 3 projects. One is what is called RC, and this is targeting the entire world. Another one is ProsperNet, and this is for the higher education facilities in the Asia Pacific region. And the third one is something to do with SDGs. So working together with the government and local governments, we are trying to support these entities to implement sustainable development goals. This is about RCE, Regional Centers of Expertise. Right now, 179 centers have been certified and registered. Not just kindergarten, but higher education, non-formal facilities and local communities and other entities. We work together with these places. And when some concrete activities are recognized, they are certified. And Kita-Kyushu City is also recognized as Regional Center of Expertise. There is no such facility recognized in Bhutan right now, so I would like to invite Bhutan to be engaged with this. This is looking at the number of RCEs around the world that are registered. Right now, it's 179, and it's still counting. So we have activities not just in schools, but also in communities, and we have good practices which are generated out of those RCEs. We have published those good practices. This is another example of international collaboration. We have the tripartite Ministry of Environment meeting and educator network, as well as the youth forum, are being held back to back with the ministers' meeting. We are working with the governments of ASEAN countries, and we have a working group on environmental education to share information and also train the government staff. This is my last slide. Global Environmental Education Partnership is another initiative that we are working on. And this is also for the purpose of information sharing and also good practices and also sharing of trainings. In September of this year, in the Asia Pacific region, we will have a meeting. And in November, we will have a global world meeting. We have the World Global Secretariat, and we have the Asia Pacific Center. These are the two entities that are hosting such an event. But we have a movement to create a center in Africa. So if you are joining from Africa today, please join this network as well. Thank you very much.
Experience of the government of Japan in the environmental education. So it's happy to see a lot of support schemes making by the government to promote the environmental education. This is very important for the cities or the schools to practice that the active learning system. So we have, I think we finished all the 4 presentations. So we have still 20 minutes. So I think this is very, very important to have some questions because let me share, actually we already received many questions. So from the participant when they registered and also during the meeting. So we pick up a couple of them. I think we thought that is have kind of a common question and also the common understanding. I don't know, we cannot go all, but let me share a couple of them we found very, very important for today's discussions. So first one is, I think it is very related to the last presentation done by the Tashiro-san, because they're asking most often these environmental education programs will be developed by the expert at the national or the local governments, not much involve the students in developing these curriculum or these materials. So how, in your experience, when you design in these environmental education programs, how you involve the needs of the students to the curriculum? So I would like to ask first from the Tachiro-san, because he said already some materials came from the students. So can you share with us how you get the students' needs and the requests to the education curriculum?
はい、ご質問ありがとうございます。先ほど日本では
Thank you for your question. A school academic subject, well, environmental education is not part of the school curriculum. That also means that everything that is connected to environment can be distributed across the curriculum, and that is one of the strengths. So on the part of the national government, we don't make any mandatory list to be taught, but educational environment can be promoted based on local needs, and we are willing to support for that activities. And we also have an awarding system to further encourage children's initiatives. For example, high school students' initiatives would include activities at the destinations of school excursions. Kobe and Sendai both had a major natural disasters, and they visit one another and they learn from each other in terms of building resilient cities. In addition to shared environmental education, and that kind of activities already exist. And Tokyo standard may not be applicable to Hokkaido or Kyushu in terms of seasonalities. So RC or CCET or other local outposts can help adjust the timing of education in terms of seasonalities. And youth network is something that we have been involved in developing. And all these experiences are having a positive impact on our initiatives. Thank you.
So we have another, actually it's asked from everyone, but to keep the time saved and go to the all questions, may I move to the next one? So the another one, we have some participant asked, we know that the environmental education not providing knowledge, so it should be more active learning and motivating, educating students to take actions to the society as a whole. So, however, how we can monitor of such results? So I think that is very important question. So how we can monitor these kind of programs and its effect to the society? So may I ask from the Kitakyushu city, because they have long history in implementing this ecology norm and environmental education. So whether the city have any programs to monitor the results and changes in the society through these environmental education programs.
So thank you for that question. This is where we are still struggling with, because it's difficult to come up with indicators. For instance, when it comes to pollution emitted from the plant, we can measure it like percentage-wise hazardous material generation has been reduced. That's quantitative. However, when it comes to learning and education, what happens to those people who have been educated? We need to have a really long span of monitoring. So what kind of behavioral changes induced? It's quite difficult to come up with indicators. So long-term monitoring is not easy. Therefore, in the city, and it's not the environment agency, that's bureau that's doing, but then we have monitoring questionnaire that's been implemented, asking the participants of such education whether there has been any change in your behavior. So such questionnaire survey is being done to see how much environmental education or policies are disseminated among the citizens. So that is how we are monitoring.
Ukian, do you have anything to add in your new program in the developing education? Did you discuss anything, or did you plan anything to monitoring the impacts in these active learning activities at the school level?
Ugyan さんのコメントを待ってる間に
As we wait for Ugen, let me add some points. Kitakyushu City also is working, has been awarded along with the shopping district SDGs award. And we have learned that a number of young people have been involved in these initiatives, demonstrating the positive outcome of education, environmental education.
I want to take another question, because that's also very important. What we learned from the both in Bhutan and in the Kitakyushu and Japan, these active learning programs cannot do by only schools and the teachers. It's need the support from whole society. So we need different, because in Kitakyushu, museum, environmental museum, recycling centers, all are part of the system. So how you can mobilize, how you can involve these different stakeholders into environmental education program. What is your, how you can give advice to others who can want to start environmental education program? May I ask from Kitakyushu City?
On our part, Board of Education and the municipal government is working together. And it is often difficult to further expand the scope of cooperation, but one thing I can share with you is that not only working with the environment and Board of Education, but also the Board of Tourism can be a good stakeholder to work with. For example, environmental school trips can be one thing that can be promoted.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Tashiro, want to add anything for that?
はい、地域と一緒に取り組む
Working with the community is one important factor. What they have learned at school needs to be embodied in their real life. Otherwise, they may forget, and the learning cannot be, or the learning outcome cannot be sustained. So it is very important to give them embody the learning in their community life. And taking an action or achieving a mindset shift also needs not only to focus on the exit or the segregation of the waste, but you can take another approach as to how to reduce the amount of waste. So the scope can be higher upstream as well. And this is also not unrelated to the policy being promoted by the Ministry of the Environment. School education is very important, but that also needs to come hand in hand with their effort with the local community.
The Ugyan can join, or we can move to the next one.
Again, can you hear us?
So we are sorry that our colleagues from Bhutan have a problem in the line. So since then, the next question is also very important, because normally environmental education is need resources. It's developed by the international support schemes, but in mostly these resources are in English, so it's very difficult to local languages. So any approach for that? I think this question comes to CCET. I would like to ask Tasuno-san, when you develop in this ecology not in other Asian countries, so how you look at this local language and how to adapt it into the local situation? So can you share with us briefly your experience?
はい、おっしゃる通り、どうしても
Yes, you're right. Whenever several people come together, we tend to use a common language, that is English. So whatever books we published or ecology notes we develop, the first language we use is English. However, on our part, as much as possible, we'd like to deliver such resources to the local people, unless otherwise it's not meaningful. Therefore, we have localized version of Ecology Note, and other publications, as much as possible, are translated into local languages. We have Khmer language version of Ecology Note in Cambodia, and also in the Bhutanese language, and it's available for primary school kids. But the basis of that is a Japanese version of Ecology Note. However, it doesn't mean that it is used as is. We incorporate the local circumstances, and we also engage local people whenever we develop local Ecology Note. And talking about Bhutan, as Ugen-san has already said, all science teachers across the nation came together to have discussion as to how to incorporate Ecology Note into the national curriculum. and also local NGOs, people came together to develop teaching materials. Thank you very much.
Again?
Yes, yes. Now I can. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. So we have still 3-4 minutes because we had a couple of questions to you. So one is when you developing this environmental education program, so it is mostly developed by the officials, not the students. So in your case, how you, whether you involve students and their opinion in this environmental education material, that is first one. And the second one, when it's going to implement, it's need to have support from the not only the teachers, but other stakeholders like business partners or the community. These kind of people support need to implement environmental education program as active learning. So how your experience in Bhutan?
Thank you, Kumar-san, for your question. Before developing the ecology note, as I have presented in my slide also, we had Youth Action for 4R clubs that was launched in 2015. And since I joined the National Environment Commission in 2018, I was the focal point for Youth Action 4R clubs. So for about more than a year, I have been studying those activities, closely in touch with the teachers and students as well. So during the teachers and students meeting, we discussed about how we can further enhance it, because during the meeting, teachers and students were raising concerns like it was mainly the club activities, which happens only once in a week, and it was only for 45 minutes. So within those short duration of time, the student couldn't do much productive activities. They have to depend again on next week. And so when ecology note came in, we discussed if we can integrate it into the curriculum nationwide, so that not only the schools in the capital city, but also across the country could benefit those. So there was involvement of student and teacher also, and active learning approach. When we studied the environmental education program in Bhutan, we had for class 9 and 10 science students, but we did not have for lower class. So to bring in behavioral activity, that was the best, the level of student and the age where we can bring in education awareness, especially on the waste management, because those students were very small, and they do some simple activities, recite 3R concept. But if we can, when they are growing up, if we can bring educational behavioral change in them, then when they grow up, they're not only having environmental conscious, but they can put more effort into the actions. So as the education level grow up, we can engage them in like just now for active learning approach, and then project-based, research-based as the student grows up. That was the whole concept. And we did engage few other stakeholders, as Miwa-san and Kumara-san has mentioned earlier. We are engaging monks and nuns through ecology note translated in our Dzongkha local language. But from the business entities, so far in Bhutan, we do not have women recycling group. So we were also in touch with a women recycling group where the hands-on training was provided by a waste entrepreneur woman, and she engaged a group of women for a field visit, a collection of plastic, to converting it into waste products. So we are receiving a huge support from NGOs, waste entrepreneurs, and government official. Of course, this program, we could not have upscaled it without the support of waste management flagship program. So we have a huge support from waste management flagship program. Just now, we do not have much of waste facilities in Bhutan. For example, recycling facility, then sanitary landfill. Those are in implementation by waste management flagship program. But in a few years, we can have it can benefit huge to the education sectors, where they can have hands-on practice. They can visit and they can see with their own eyes how waste management facilities can looks like in practical and nearby their schools and colleges, and can have project and researchers on those areas. Thank you, Kumar-san.
Thank you very much, Ugyan. So very comprehensive explanation. So thank you very much. I think we're almost in the end of the time. So let me very briefly summarize what we learned. I think quite good webinar today. So I also learned a lot on this subject. So a couple of things what we learned. The current society, like we are now having to achieve like zero carbon in 2050 by 2050. And SDG targets in 2030. So all these cannot be achieved only from technology innovation. So we need behavior change, and environmental education can be one of the main pillars. But it should not be the knowledge sharing, but it should be more focused on the changing behaviors and taking actions oriented education. And also we learned that it is very important, not only the whole school, but the whole society approach involving other key stakeholders around the communities to join these programs and educating and working with the students. And also we found that it's need more tools, methods to the teachers, curriculum development, but not in the international languages, but also in the local languages. And also finally, we found that it is quite helpful, this international cooperation and peer learning by government to government and the city to city and school to school, and making these environmental education programs. I found these points are very much important when we discussing today webinar. And also I'm very interested in like the Miss Tashiro mentioned like RCE. There is no any RCE program in Bhutan yet. So this can be one of the first. So I'm very much happy and willing to see how CCET and if possible MOJ can help Bhutan NEC and REC to develop that program in Bhutan. That can be one of the good outcome from this webinar, practical outcome from this webinar. So thank you again for the all speakers. I want to give a big hands to all of you for your very valuable thoughts and presentations. And before I'm going to finish, so Tasuno-san, have you anything from the committee? No. So then may I ask Onagawa-san to have any final comments or thoughts? Onagawa-san?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I was very much impressed with quite active discussion at this webinar, and I could learn that environmental education is very much big, the subject of a big interest of so many people in the society. So we will continue to work on this the educational the issues through our activities, and I hope we can have another the opportunity to follow up this discussion later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Onagawa-san. So thank you very much again for all speakers and all participants to join with us today. So if you want to have any information or any additional comments, so please contact us from our website or sending us an email. So we are very happy to continue this dialogue from here on. So thank you very much.